Welcome to Baking Challah with Men's Club. I'm Marc Weinstein. I've been baking challahs for close to 32 years now. Started off making it by hand using a recipe they called for anywhere from 10 to 12 cups of flour. I did that for about 8-10 years, and then I got a bread machine, makes it much easier, but I had to scale it down, and the recipe that you'll see is the scaled down version. But you should be able to double it if you want to make it by hand and exceed the capacity of the bread machine. The way the bread machine works is you put in the liquid ingredients first and then the dry ingredients. So you've got the recipe, and the recipe says that you have to add a combination of eggs and water. I start off using 2.5 eggs and water to make up 360 grams of liquid, or 380 grams of liquid. I use the other half egg for a wash. I decided I like a richer challah, so I used 3 eggs, and I crack a 4th egg for the wash we'll talk about at the end. So I mixed up water and eggs, 3 eggs here, as you can see. Get the right thing, there we go. So you can see there are 3 eggs in here, plus the water to equal 380 grams of liquid. Pour that into the container for your bread machine, and I found that the advantage of weighing it is I get more consistent results, and that you really minimize how many dishes you have to wash. For the demonstration, I've actually used more dishes than I usually do. I usually just pour it right into the container. So I've got 380 grams of liquid, which is 3 eggs and water to make up the difference to make it to 380 grams. Each large egg is about 50 grams. I then add oil. I start using any oil. You can use any oil, but I saw a recipe where it uses olive oil to make a richer tasting challah. So I started using 60 grams of olive oil, and I just pour that in. And if you go a little bit over or under, not the end of the world. It's a very forgiving recipe for that. So I've added 60 grams of oil, and again, you can use either olive oil or any neutral oil like peanut oil, safflower oil, canola oil, etc. And then finally, the recipe I've been following for the 30 years, or since I started using a bread machine, is using a little bit of acidic liquid, either vinegar. I'm using the distilled vinegar, or lemon juice. I find I have the vinegar always available, so I use 1 teaspoon or 5 grams of distilled vinegar. So I've got approximately 5 grams of vinegar into the mixture, and you can zero it out, and now I can add the flour. And I've been using bread flour. I find any brand of bread flour works fine. And I want to add 625 grams of flour. Now, if you're making challah, there are certain brachas you have to say if you take challah, but if the recipe doesn't call for enough flour for you to take challah or to say a bracha, then you don't have to add more flour just to get that bracha in. And at 625 grams, you don't need to take challah nor say a bracha. If you double it, you at least have to take challah where you separate it out and either throw it out or burn it in the fire or in the oven. So yeah, 625 grams, and again, it doesn't have to be that precise, to the mixture. And then the next ingredient is the sugar, 160 grams of sugar. I originally started off with about half a cup of sugar, but I've added to that So we add the 160 grams of sugar. Okay, and then I add about 8 to 10 grams of salt. And I prefer using the kosher salt because sometimes we have the iodized salt, it interacts with the yeast. Pour that in. I pre-measured this. And then 7 grams of yeast, which is about 1 packet of the dried yeast. I use Red Star Dry. And I just pour it into the container. Pour it into it. And that's all that you need to do for mixing the ingredients. Once you have it in the container, you put it into your bread machine and you select the dough only. You don't want to bake into challah. So those are things that you need to work with for that. So we'll put it into the machine, turn it on, and then we'll come back in about 2.5 to 3 hours, check it, but you want to wait till the dough is doubled. If you're mixing it by hand, you mix it together, you knead it until it has a consistency of like an earlobe. It should take about 15-20 minutes to get all the ingredients sticks together. The more you knead it, the more the gluten develops. And then you put it into an oiled bowl, let it rise until it's doubled. Okay, thank you, and we'll talk to you later. These are the instructions for doing a 1-strand challah braid. It's a very quick way to do it, and it especially works well if you're making a lot of little ones, which what Stephanie and I have been doing during the shutdown. So instead of making 4 large challot, we would make 8 every month and have smaller challah for just the 2 of us. So you start, you know when the challah is done is when it doubles in size, or even a little bit more than that, but the key thing is when you put your finger into it, it should still retain the impression and slowly spring back. Once you have that, you want to get into a ball shape and however much dough you want, and you flatten it out. A couple good whacks with your hand, and then you roll it into a single strand. And we'll start in the center and just sort of stretch the dough, bring it to the ends. If you need a little flour, you can just dust it, but don't want to get too dry, otherwise it'll dry out the dough. Once you have it, you want to form it into an E shape, like so, or 6, and you take the one underneath it, bring it over, you twist it away from you, and then bring it back through again. And now you have a nice braid with just 1 strand, and you're done. So that makes it so much easier. Okay, this demonstration is how to do a 2-strand challah that turns into a 4 braid. What you want to do is to get 2 long strands. So I've rolled out 1 strand already. And I want to take the 2nd strand. Now, you know when it's ready to roll out when you look at the dough and you can poke it and you see that it retains an impression. That's a sign that it is ready to roll out. So you divide the dough into however many servings of challah you want. And then in this case, I divided the ball of dough into 2 sections, one for the 1st strand, one for the second. I then flatten it out, and it makes rolling out the dough easier into the strands. So you want to get as uniformly thick strand as possible. And sometimes you want to roll out the second one, let that rest a second or two. And the key thing is what I do is make two horseshoes that overlap. So you can see I've got two horseshoes where here's one and here's the other. And I take the center one and overlap it this way. And I take the inner one here and overlapping it. And what you want to do is, this is what it looks like, so you want to keep doing the overlapping. And then I find working from the outside again, overlapping it, so you did with the 3-strand, over, under, and once you have this, gather the ends together, pinch it, and just turn it over. And now you have a braided with just 2 strands. Nice thing about this is a little more compact than this 3-strand braid. You then bring it over to the cookie sheet that has parchment paper on it. And you want to place it so that it has room to grow without going off the end. So I put it about half the thickness in. This way there's a chance to expand this way and lengthwise for it. We'll put it aside, let it rise for about 2 to 3 hours till it doubles in size. Then we'll add the egg wash. Thank you. So we're now looking at braiding the challah. It's been about 3 hours since I last started the machine, or 4 hours. What you want to do is to let the dough rise till it's about doubled. For me, I usually let in the machine, let it till it crowns over the top of the container. So it looks like a nice dome. And the key thing you want to look for is that when you poke the challah, it has an impression but then springs back slightly for that. So that's what you'll look for, then you know it's ready to go. The dough should be a little bit sticky but not too much, so lightly dust the board with flour. I've divided it up into 4 different sections, and I'll make 4 different braids to show you how to do that. The first braid I'm doing is a 4-braided round challah. It's great for Rosh Hashanah. And what I've done was I've rolled out 3 equal strands, and I take the 4th strand and you sort of form it into a little ball, mush it flat, and then you start rolling it out to the same length as the other 3. And what I find with this recipe, I always like braided challahs, and it seems to work much better. And having a braided round challah makes it look very nice presentation, and you still get the effect of the braid of being able to pull it apart for that. A little bit spring back. So what you want to do is to form a lattice in the center. And just get a little bit tight. And you want it over, under, over, under. And then you just take each pair and you alternate it. So I pull it over here. I then take this, pull it over its adjoining pair. Likewise. So now I've done 3 times, and I do it in reverse order. So I went counterclockwise, and I'm doing clockwise.
You have reached 732-339-0485. Please leave a message and we will return your call when we can. Thank you.
Hello, calling to Challah with Challah. I'm doing my own phone. Anyway, love y'all. Bye.
So you then alternate one more time. And you can see it getting, it may look a little messy right now, but what we want to do is we'll flip it at the very end. So once we've got it done 3 or 4 times, we then take the 2 ends, pinch it together, bring it to the center, pinch it together, bring it to the center, and then pinch it together so everything comes together in the center of the challah. And this looks ugly on the bottom, but this is the bottom of the challah. But if you turn it over, shape it, and you can see that you have a very nice 4-strand round challah. And then we just take this, put it onto our parchment lined baking sheet. You can see over here. And this has room to grow on the sides. Next challah will be over here. And then I'll do the next pan with the other 2 challot. So now we have the 4 chalot divided. And what I did here is just divided one of them into half, and so these are 2 single braid challahs. This is a double braid challah. This is the triple braid challah, but I bent it into a U shape. And then over here is the 4 braid challah. And let's turn this lid it's off the screen. So here you can see the lag there. So these are the 1-strand challah. There are 2 1-strand, 1 double strand, and the other 2 are 3 and 4-strand challahs, one of which is round. What you want to do is just cover it with a cloth and then put it into a warm oven to rise for about 2 hours. And that's it. Okay, it's been about 2.5 hours since we put the loaves into rise. You can see they're more than doubled, so they've a little bit over-risen. It just means it's going to be a lighter, airier challah, and some people like it that way. So what we're going to do is work on putting on the egg wash and then coating it with sesame seeds. I prefer sesame seeds over poppy seeds, but you can use poppy seeds. My daughter uses everything topping, bagel topping. So whatever you want to top it with, you can do that. For Purim, we have friends who top it with rainbow sprinkles. So what you want to do, and I'm just going to do 1 challah, show you how it's done. This is very light. You don't want to push too hard on it, especially when it's over-risen. Otherwise, it'll deflate. You got to wait till it rises again. So take a brush, and I mixed up 1 whole egg. This was a large egg, and just lightly paint the surfaces. And the reason for the wash is twofold. One is it helps keep gases in, so it helps rise and gets a very nice dense crumb in the challah. And 2, gives a shiny sheen to the challah as well. And finally, it allows the sesame seeds to stick to the challah and not fall out. And as I said, I like to put a double wash. I will put the wash on first, and then sprinkle sesame seeds, and then put egg on top of the seeds to cement them into place when they bake so they don't fall off in the bag, and I get to eat the seeds. So I want to get all the surfaces covered for that, and because the challah is over-risen, this time I'm baking it at a preheated oven of 300 degrees. The oven is preheating now, and once this is done, I will put the challahs in to bake, and it should take about 15-20 minutes. So I then sprinkle the seeds on. And I also use seeds to differentiate between raisin challahs and plain challahs. These are plain challahs. You can see the seeds are sprinkled on top, and I just do the wash again. That's what you just do again to lock the seeds down so they don't fall out when they put them in the bag or when I cut them. Again, I'm using a very light hand. I'm not pushing down on it, just the weight of the brush and the egg yolk is all I'm using. And try and get all the surfaces covered. You'll notice if you don't, you'll just see the difference between the shiny side and the non-shiny side, but it works out just fine. If you're vegan, you may skip the egg wash. You could use water. You can also use honey as well for that. And that's all there is to it. The rest of it, I'll be doing the other 5 chalot. As you can see, this is what the other challahs look like. I decided to make the 3-strand challah into a U shape, and then that's the round braid over there. It looks gorgeous, if I say so myself. Okay, I will show you what the challah look like when I take them out together. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes in a preheated 300 degree oven. And you can see the results of the challah baking, that it's nice golden brown on top. And we flip it over, you'll see that it's a light color on the bottom too. This is where we have an argument. I like it a little bit more cooked. Stephanie likes it just like this, so that it's a more chewy texture for the challah. So these are the chalot. It's again 20 minutes. During the course of it, I had 2 oven shelves. I rotated them on the shelf about 5-6 minutes into the baking, and I switched shelves in another 5 or 6 minutes and just let them finish baking. I use a convection oven, so it ends up distributing the heat a little bit better for that. And you can see the difference of where the wash was and where it was and where it's shiny on top and where it's not on the side. So I could have been brushed a little bit better, but that is how you make challah a la Marc Weinstein's recipe. Have a good Shabbos, Shana Tova, and take care.